Are you hungry? Then come to White Castle and try our slider special.
Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle has the most efficient setup line in comedy history. The titular pair have set off for the titular burger joint, determined that nothing else could possibly satisfy their munchies. Upon arrival, they discover that White Castle has been shut down, but that there's another location just 45 minutes away. Undeterred, they drive on, but not before Kumar turns to Harold and says this.
Then listen. No matter what, we are not ending this night without White Castle in our stomachs, agreed?
Agreed.
This line tells us everything we need to know for the rest of the film. We understand what the characters want, and that the story will culminate with them getting it. As promised, Harold and Kumar will go to White Castle. Simple enough. But what interests me about this line is that Kumar isn't speaking to Harold. Harold has already agreed to go. There's no reason to reiterate the plan to him. Kumar is speaking to us. He's cluing us into a rule that the movie will now follow, one that has little to do with their destination.
No matter what, we are not ending this night without White Castle in our stomachs, agreed?
Agreed.
No matter what. Why would he say this? What does he suspect will happen? At this point, they've had only a minor hiccup in their journey, and so far as they know, they have an uneventful drive ahead of them. But when Kumar says this line, he issues a challenge to every other character in the film. Nothing can stop them from getting to White Castle. Therefore, anyone is invited to try. Therefore, everyone and everything that crosses their path will try. And so, in just one line, Kumar has laid out such clear rules for the story that it ceases to be a story at all, and instead becomes a game. If you've ever taken an improv class, you're probably familiar with the concept of finding the game. Short-form improv is performed as a series of games with different rules which the host explains before each scene.
Let's go on to a game called Film Dub, shall we? It's a game called Film Dub, okay?
But just as often, the game is discovered within the scene, when all the players spontaneously agree to build on an idea in the same way, or when they team up to turn what seemed like a one-off gag into a recurring bit.
What's this game called?
Film Dub.
The term is generally credited to Del Close and refers to a loosely defined teaching tool that helps improvisers identify and expand upon comedic patterns. But the tradition of finding the game goes back hundreds of years in both scripted and unscripted comedy. The vaudeville era, for example, was made up of nothing but games. And since most silent film comedians were former vaudevillians, the early days of cinema were packed with pre-tested games and routines. It wasn't long before the performers discovered the camera's ability to play along. No longer was a game dependent on the interactions between players, now the universe itself could join in, conspiring against the characters to thwart their goals or protecting them from harm like a guardian angel. So while the game can be woven into any comedy medium, only in film did it realize its full potential. But what exactly is a game? Well, it's any time that a narrative readjusts its internal logic to follow a specific set of rules. The game can last for a single scene or an entire runtime. It can be a game we already know, one the characters invent, or one they don't even realize they're playing, so long as the rules are clearly laid out for the audience to play along. A game differs from a premise in that it dictates how the universe will respond to a situation, not the situation itself. A premise is Laurel and Hardy carrying a piano up a long flight of stairs. A game is the piano falling every time they've almost reached the top. Take Safety Last, a film whose entire third act is a publicity stunt in which Harold Lloyd must climb the side of a skyscraper. What makes this premise funny, rather than scary, is that Lloyd's character doesn't know he'll have to make the entire climb. His plan is to only go the first floor and then swap places with a trained stunt double. But the double has the law on his tail, and whenever Lloyd has almost caught up to him, a police officer arrives to chase him up another flight of stairs, and Lloyd must climb on. This only has to happen once or twice before we figure out the game, and we take an almost cruel delight in watching Lloyd repeatedly muster the strength to go just one more floor, unaware that he'll be disappointed each time. But we also take comfort in the knowledge that he, not his double, will eventually reach the top, and he becomes as much a source of inspiration as an object of ridicule. So in a way, a game is a sort of paradox in which we root for both the success and the failure of the characters. We want the piano to reach its destination, and we want it to fall. Like any game, we don't want to win until we're finished playing. Perhaps the clearest example of this paradox is a series of cartoons in which a predator continually comes within inches of catching his prey, only to be repeatedly thwarted at the last moment. Now, this could be a description of Tom and Jerry, or Sylvester and Tweety, or any number of other comedy pairings from the era, but you probably all knew I was referring to the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Chuck Jones initially conceived this duo as a parody of the cat and mouse formula he found so tiresome from other cartoons. But audiences took the characters sincerely, and they quickly became the standard bearers of the genre. When you see modern parodies of chase cartoons, it's this style that they follow, not the originals. So what makes the pair feel so definitive? Rules. Jones repeatedly emphasized the importance of discipline in his cartoons, and the Roadrunner shorts appealed less because of what they did than what they didn't do. The location never changes, the Roadrunner never leaves the road, the coyote never catches him. His plans will always backfire, he will always make this face as he realizes his blunder, and most importantly, he will never be directly harmed by the Roadrunner or any outside force, only by his own obsession. These rules are so strictly applied that the pleasure of the series is its predictability. We can sympathize with the coyote and even cheer him on specifically because we know he will fail. On the rare occasion that the rules do get broken, it's to subvert the game, not to deviate from it. The game isn't limited to comedy, it simply requires a heightened reality that can bend its laws as the rules demand. A reality most often found in the corner of low art.
I want to play a game.
The horror genre has built its entire mythology out of setting and breaking rules for character survival, with films like Nightmare on Elm Street, Final Destination, and It Follows crafting monsters that essentially function as walking rulebooks.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Others, like Scream and The Cabin in the Woods, cash in on our familiarity with genre tropes to make horror itself the monster, feeding off its own history like a grotesque Ouroboros, with each new generation of victims increasingly aware of what game they're playing and which roles they exist to fill.
Well, is any one of us safe?
Yeah, virgins. Virgins never die.
I'm dead.
I'm dead. Well, I'll get as sick as you can get without actually dying.
Action films have a proclivity for games as well, setting impossibly specific restrictions to keep us from losing interest in their otherwise invincible heroes. John Wick pursues this idea into a near-perfect deconstruction of the one-man army mythos. Its premise never runs deeper than this hitman is the best hitman, but its game is played from the outside in, revealing up front that Wick is the most dangerous character in this universe, and then peeling back the layers of the universe while leaving him untouched.
You, working again? No, just sorting some stuff out.
We're gradually lifted from the real world into a hyper-stylized comic book setting with its own politics, codes, and currency. And the larger the kingdom grows, the funnier it becomes that this soft-spoken, gentle-faced dog lover is the king. The sequels, for all their stunning choreography, couldn't recapture this game, because the cards had all been played, and John Wick had already won. We can see how much difference a game can make by comparing two films with essentially the same premise, Battle Royale and The Hunger Games. Both are based on popular novels, both depict a dystopian society where groups of teenagers fight to the death each year in a display of totalitarian control, and both center on a pair of puppy lovers and a former champion who acts as their mentor. The appeal of gladiatorial sci-fi is that as revolting as we find the contest, we do want to watch. We want to see the characters turn mundane objects into murder weapons. We want to know the precise order in which they'll go out. We're aware that the hero will eventually break free and topple the system, but first, they have to win, and we get to enjoy the fun guilt-free until they do. Hunger Games utilizes all the usual tools for this built-in game, cutting away to TV presenters and crewmen whenever it needs to remind us of a rule or point out dangers the contestants might have missed.
I want to see if she's going to figure out this booby trap.
Yes, it seems they've reburied their minds around that big pile of goodies.
Even so, it hesitates to let us play along, showing only the deaths Katniss witnesses firsthand and rarely providing any updates for the rest. Even as a sky screen recaps the fallen contestants, the camera cuts away to watch her reaction, as if embarrassed to participate in its own game. Battle Royale, on the other hand, finds a deceptively simple way to keep us caught up. Every time a character is killed, we cut to the scorecard. No announcers, no studio audience, just a clear, direct message from the film to the viewer. We know you like this game, so here, come play with us. Any film can have a game. Any film can be a game. All it takes is one or more rules and a willing audience. Sometimes the only rule is to give them exactly what the title promises. Which brings us back to Harold and Kumar, their quest for the perfect midnight snack, and the collaboration of their universe to keep them from getting it. The game is played flawlessly by all participants. Will this friendly trucker fix their car and send them on their way? No, it's Freak Show, a disfigured maniac with a surprisingly adventurous marital situation.
How about a foursome?
Will this hitchhiker have directions to get them back on the main road? No, it's Doogie Howser, quick to steal Harold's car in a mad quest for lady parts.
What's the deal with Neil Patrick Harris? Why is he so horny?
With nowhere else to turn, will Harold be able to cross this seemingly empty street to use a payphone? Of course not. But in the long and rich history of games and film, is this less than perfect stoner comedy really all that special? Do Harold and Kumar make any contribution that wasn't already made by Laurel and Hardy, or Hope and Crosby, or Cheech and Chong 100 times over? Truthfully, no. What sets the film apart isn't that we'd never seen it before. It's that we haven't seen it since. In the 16 years since Harold and Kumar's release, it's hard to come up with another American comedy that delivers a truly memorable game. We'll get a mini-game here or there, but nothing to compare to the high-concept scripts of so many great films in the preceding decades. Even films with decidedly game-like setups tend to throw rules out the window and take their characters from one comic set piece to the next with no consequences. So what caused the change?
Well, I don't want to blame it all on 9/11, but it certainly didn't help.
A lot of things changed in the early 2000s. Following a relatively calm and prosperous decade, the nation was suddenly dropped into a traumatic period of confusion and moral ambiguity. Within a few years, this disorientation had taken over Hollywood. The sentimental touch of Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis was replaced with the gritty realism of Paul Greengrass and Kathryn Bigelow. Fluid cinematography lost out to shaky, handheld camera work. The clear-cut lessons of Disney evolved into the emotional complexity of Pixar. We got a grimmer Bond, a grimmer Batman, a grimmer Beethoven, and heightened reality comedy gave way to the deadpan naturalism of the Judd Apatow crew. Laughter became a serious business, grounded in everyday situations and largely improvised dialogue, with little more for the director to do than hit record and let the actors carry the scene. And so, the camera lost its ability to interfere. Jokes were mined exclusively from character interactions, with style and structure dismissed as escapism when the world so desperately needed to grapple with reality. But as realistic as comedy became, it didn't get any more mature. We still saw the same broad characters making unfathomably dumb decisions, just without any internal logic to back them up. The result is that their actions tend to be more stressful than funny. When Harold and Kumar attempt to ride a cheetah, it will either serve their agenda of getting to White Castle, or serve the game of keeping them away. But either way, it satisfies expectations that the film has already put in place. But when Ron Burgundy attempts to hug a shark, there's nothing at stake, and the shark can only respond realistically because the scene's only purpose is to remind us that Ron is dumb. When the American Pie Boys accidentally find themselves in a suggestive pose, we know from the running game that someone will walk in on them at the exact Ron moment. Not the best gag, but charming in its consistency. But when the Pineapple Express boys do the same, no one walks in on them and they just keep making sexual poses, 'cause gay stuff sure is funny. When Harry and Lloyd drive each other to bankruptcy, frostbite, and explosive diarrhea, it's stupid of course, but that's what drives the story. Every action is an attempt to outdumb the last. The game is literally in the title, and the film rewards them for playing it. But when the stepbrothers try to outdumb each other, through a series of plotless, mean-spirited scenes that could be reassembled in any order, and a supporting cast that recognizes and repeatedly vocalizes just how stupid they are, there's no incentive for us to play along. Dumb characters can deliver intelligent humor, but we have to understand why they think the way they do. It should be apparent that the writer is able to step inside their brain and that each of their ideas follows a particular runaway train of thought.
A moo point?
Yeah, it's like a cow's opinion. It just doesn't matter. It's moo.
But it's hard to achieve this when a film seems entirely indifferent to its characters. When the only pitch is that if we liked Will Ferrell yelling before, this time he'll yell louder. This leads to quick audience burnout, and as a result, star vehicles for comedians have disappeared almost entirely. Not because the performers are any less talented, but because no one's giving them an interactive, rule-abiding universe in which to play. Even Game Night, a film clearly intent on reviving this lost approach, never actually sets any hard rules for itself. Its sly camera tricks don't build off each other, its recurring jokes don't inform the structure or even follow the basic rule of threes, and as a parody it actually plays down the rapid-fire plot turns of its source material, arguably taking place in a more realistic universe. And these aren't necessarily bad choices, the finished product is still one of the best studio comedies we've seen in a long time. It's just odd to show such reverence for games and such resistance to actually playing them. Not every comedy needs rules, of course. Quite often anarchy is the more appropriate choice. For every Chuck Jones out there promoting the importance of discipline, there's a Tex Avery who can't go 7 minutes without desecrating the very idea of structure. But the two aren't mutually exclusive. Just look at the LEGO franchise, a love letter to chaos with in-jokes, sight gags, and pop culture references flying furiously across the screen. But it follows intensely precise rules, with every character modeled after actual LEGO products and all their actions subject to the whims of their child overlords.
You missed me.
No, I did not.
Actually, if anyone's capable of bringing the game back, it's Lord and Miller. Theirs is a universe with clear designs on its characters, one where jokes have their own logic, where no gag is wasted, and where each scene moves the story towards its eventual destination. And they're not alone. Plenty of directors still put this level of style and care into their humor, but usually only after they've cemented their auteur status. We'll accept divine intervention from Wes Anderson or the Coen brothers only because we've decided not to think of their films as comedies. If they toy with their characters, it must be to achieve some greater meaning, not because they simply want to use the most effective possible tools to make us laugh. But even without a legendary director, even without carefully constructed jokes, even without big stars, or comical props, or sets, or makeup, even without a premise, if all you have are two actors improvising in front of the camera, there's still no reason we can't have a game. In fact, the moment that arguably launched the era of structureless comedy was little more than an unscripted vaudeville routine.
You know how I know you're gay?
How?
You like Coldplay.
You know I know you're gay?
How?
I saw you make a spinach dip in a loaf of sourdough bread once.
It's easy to watch Life of the Party and declare that comedy is dead, but that's simply not true. The talent is still there, the material is still ripe, the jokes are still funny, or at least no less funny than they ever were. What has died is the game, but it's being slowly resurrected. In horror, in action, on TV, in music videos, even in commercials.
You're probably thinking this is another Old Spice ad. Look again. This is a Hulu ad that tell you should get Hulu with no ads if you're not into ads.
Meanwhile, Steadicam is back, Spielbergian sentiment is back, Disney is definitely back. There's clearly a returning demand for films that want us to feel good and click all the right pieces into place to make that happen. Comedy is really the only holdout.
Light this bitch up.
At the climax of Keanu, Clarence and Rel are trapped in the middle of a shootout when they suddenly realize that the gangsters they've fallen in with are working as a team, and that maybe they've rubbed off on their new crew in a positive way.
Look! They're communicating.
This is nice, except teamwork was never really something the gangsters lacked. We never saw them fail to communicate at any critical moment, so this change doesn't actually fulfill any emotional expectation.
Awesome! I know, yeah.
At the climax of the Ghostbusters remake, Erin dives into a portal to the spirit world to rescue Abby because she can't stand to abandon her again like she did when they were younger.
Erin! I wasn't gonna leave you twice.
This conflict was established early on, but it was also resolved early on, and has had no impact on the story or their relationship since the 20-minute mark.
Who you gonna call? Oh, this is so exciting. You're about to learn who you're gonna call. Ghostbusters.
At the climax of Zombieland, a film which actually does establish clear rules, and makes a game of having them literally pop up on screen, and gives the characters a White Castle-esque destination for their journey, Little Rock and Wichita get trapped on a carnival ride and Columbus and Tallahassee have to come rescue them. But the rules never have any pivotal effect on the plot, and no named character is ever punished for breaking them, and the dream destination is a huge, noisy fairground that will obviously attract zombies by the thousand, so we're just left wondering what the characters thought was going to happen. In fact, what did you think would happen should have been the title of this movie.
No!
Now here's the climax of Harold and Kumar, and talk about satisfying. Even though it has nothing to do with the larger troubles the boys have faced throughout the film, their success completes the game and allows all extraneous pieces to fall into place. See, a game is more than just a structural device. It's a reassurance to the audience that the world they're about to enter makes sense. We wouldn't tolerate our heroes just walking away from a scene of police brutality if they didn't have a game to play. But the film promises us that as long as they make it to White Castle, all wrongs will eventually be righted.
In the end, the universe tends to unfold as it should.
Harold will get the girl because he won the game. Bad guys will be punished because they're part of the game. Cheetahs will get baked, Freak Show will have a Banin wife, NPH will save the day, all because the game declares it so. The same tropes that so often play as tired, forced, and sexist, here bring the story to a state of airtight symbiosis and resolution. Comedies will always be dumb, and repetitive, and predictable, and pointless, but if you can bring these vices together, let them play off each other under the same rules, you can easily transform them into virtues. And that's why Harold and Kumar still feels so essential 16 years later. On paper, it's not a top-quality film, but it rises above the sum of its parts by establishing a strong game and playing it to perfection, turning a stupid premise into an epic journey, racist jokes into cutting political commentary, and shameless product placement into a generation-defining metaphor for the American dream. Harold and Kumar must go to White Castle. Nothing else would suffice. That's how the game is played.
Damn, that hit the spot.